A young woman in Saginaw, Michigan, finally gets out of an abusive relationship. She wants to start over, have a good time, and build a wonderful life with her daughter. But she is someone's obsession and under surveillance. A living nightmare. She's always concerned for her safety.
She told me she knew that she was gonna die young.
A scream rings out in the night. The only thing she can be sure of, the stalker is coming. Saginaw is a city in the U.S. state of Michigan and the seat of Saginaw County.
It was great. Play outside until dark. Saginaw was just a great place to grow up.
Born in Saginaw, Melissa "Missy" Thornton is the baby of her loving family.
She liked Melissa and that, but she was our Missy. She was funny, playful, quiet. She was a little bit shy in that, but she made a lot of friends. She was a lot of fun.
She has two older sisters to look up to.
I am Missy's oldest sister. She was my living, breathing baby doll. Missy Thornton becomes a mom in her early 20s, and she eventually gets engaged to the child's father, Robert Propp, but she's not happy.
He would get really possessive about her wanting to go out with us or just wanting to like keep tabs, if you will. And that was a bit concerning for me. I had been in somewhat of an abusive relationship before, and just seeing some of those initial signs, they were fighting a lot of arguments.
She kind of was different around him. She was more quiet, more reserved.
Missy Thornton finally reaches a breaking point.
She didn't want to marry him. Little did he know then that she was already searching for a way out of their relationship. The moment that it started, she was looking for a way to end it.
In 2016, Missy breaks it off, takes their child, and moves in with her sister.
Missy focuses on pursuing her nursing degree and taking care of her young child.
She was doing private care for a lady that we knew, and then she would go to school in the evenings.
The reason Missy decides to become a nurse is so she can be successful for her daughter's sake. She's moving on, but for Robert, the relationship isn't over.
So Missy Thornton breaks up with Robert Propp, wants to start her life over again, moves in with her family back in Saginaw, Michigan.
But it's not over for her ex-fiancé. Missy Thornton becomes Robert Propp's obsession.
He was hounding her. She didn't have any freedom.
Missy Thornton, after the breakup with Robert Propp, decides to go to a bachelorette party. And Robert Propp phones her repeatedly, almost excessively, one would think. This, maybe after a short breakup, isn't abnormal, but if it continues, it becomes a problem.
He just always seemed to have an attitude and a problem with her going places, and he threw a big fit about that, and he said we were dressed inappropriately, not just her. And he just kept calling the whole night, over and over, and he didn't stop. I think she ended up having to turn her phone off.
Incidents like this are common occurrences.
We would go out together and her phone would just be buzzing off the table, and I think we all kind of knew that that was an unhealthy behavior.
We got into like a conversation about death. She told me she knew that she was gonna die young.
Missy's goal is to keep the peace with him because she doesn't want to risk any custody issues with her child. However, it's not easy. Robert is stalking her. No matter what she does, he's always around.
He shows up, and instead of Missy wanting to be combative or get into a fight, he's always just kind, courteous, trying to just deal with the situation without it escalating, being dramatic.
Living with her sister is good for the soul, and everyone close to Missy observes that she has started to act like her old self again.
Now she feels more secure. She's at a different address, she no longer has to live with Robert, and she has a sister just down the street.
Missy Thornton isn't really free.
I was woke up by knocking on my windows, and I followed the knocks around the house, and I finally went to the front door, and I pulled back the curtain and looked, and there was his face standing there and looking at me. And I opened the door and I asked him, "What the bleep are you doing here?" And he stumbled into my house, and he went right past me, right for her bedroom, and barged in the bedroom door and startled her. She got scared. He said that he couldn't get a hold of her. Why wasn't she answering the phone? And I escorted him out of my home and told him that I would drive him home. And I drove him home that night. And there was another time where my neighbors actually called me that they caught somebody in a hoodie peering in my windows. And then there was a pickup truck that was circling the block, and the person driving the pickup truck ended up picking that person up that was peering in my windows.
This is getting really crazy. I told her literally, I said, "I do not want to attend your funeral." But she continued to have lunch with him and stuff because he would threaten her and say that he would take my niece if she didn't do these things.
One night, while socializing with a friend at a bar, Thornton goes outside for a smoke. It's there she observes a parked car. The driver begins to flash their headlights at her. And then the truck roars up. Robert Propp is clearly seen as he quickly takes off down the road. Missy and Angela go out for drinks at a few local bars. Missy hopes to run into a bartender that she has dated a few times.
And then he just showed up. He came in, and it was just awkward. He followed us back. He wasn't invited, he just followed us back. He was told to leave, he just kind of like followed back in.
Robert follows the women home and invites himself in.
She was making taco salads. Asked me if I wanted any taco salad, and I said no.
So they're sitting on the porch, having a snack. They decide to go to a bar. Angela, her sister, decides to go to bed. She doesn't want to go to the bar with them.
There's a strange incident in the area. In the wee hours of the night, across the street from Missy and Angela's residence. Police knock on Missy's sister's door, Stephanie, with an inquiry.
There's been a report of a woman screaming in the neighborhood. Police are canvassing the neighbors and people to try to find out, but Stephanie hasn't heard anything.
Angela's up before 6 a.m., going about her business for the day.
I got up and went to go let the dog out and noticed that the back gate was open again. Not the first time he's left my gate open. So then, it's a chance of my dog getting out. So I was ticked about that. But then I got ready for work and his vehicle was gone. And my sister's car was in the driveway.
As far as she knows, Missy is sleeping in her room. But around 10:15 a.m., Saginaw police receive a call from a man who says his girlfriend isn't breathing. The dispatcher directs him to perform CPR.
The Saginaw police arrive at Angela's house where Missy is living.
So the police enter the house after the 911 call, and they find Robert Propp on top of Missy performing CPR as if he's trying to save her life.
Missy's sister Stephanie is at work when she hears from a colleague that something is wrong in her neighborhood.
And he says, "You gotta leave work right now." I was like, "Well, why?" And he was like, "There's a bunch of ambulances outside your sister's house."
What happened to Missy?
When Missy Thornton ends her relationship with Robert Propp, he exhibits stalking behavior. Out on a night of bar hopping, it's a disappointing surprise when he shows up and invites himself along. But the next morning, it's Propp who calls 911 and performs CPR to save his ex-fiance's life. They have a complicated relationship, and just lately, it looks like things are over for good. Missy Thornton, born on August 29, 1991, in Saginaw, has a lot of ambitions, like seeing the world. And when she meets Robert Propp, she feels like he could be the person to share her life with.
He lived next door to Stephanie.
I already knew who he was because we went to high school together. He was the boy that would sit in the driveway and rev his engine and drive you nuts with things like that.
He connects with Missy immediately, and things get serious.
I guess I was surprised because there was a huge age difference.
I had concerns that he was my neighbor. And I remember telling her, if things start to go south, can you please just break up with him right away? Because I don't want to have to move. And I told her that straightforward, I don't want to have to move. And then I ended up having to move.
Propp owns a successful auto business. He presents as mature and moving forward in a very successful life.
I mean, at first it was a lot of nice honeymoon phase type stuff. Oh, he's this great guy, he's got this great job, a good future, a good foundation. She liked the family aspect of everything, and I guess we all just kind of let her be in that honeymoon phase. And we saw her a little bit less, but just contributed that to a new relationship type of thing.
By the summer of 2012, they move in together, across the street from Missy's sister. But their relationship becomes uneasy. She is like a mother to his children, while he spends a lot of time at his business.
I never liked him. He wouldn't look at me in the eye. When he talked to somebody, you look down here or down and away, and just didn't rub me the right way. She kind of was different around him.
I would say probably a couple months into their relationship, she found out he had a drug problem. And I would have never guessed that he had a drug problem. You know, he went to church and he was in college and had his own little business, so I was kind of surprised. She ended up, I think, breaking up with him over that. And then they got back together because I think he had supposedly quit. But from there on, like, things progressively got worse. He had a temper. Like, anything my older sister would get her, like, he would break. He even threw, like, some candle thing that she got him off their balcony.
When Missy finds out she's pregnant, she hopes their relationship will improve, but he stays away even more.
In January 2014, Missy gives birth to their baby girl, and she's a natural mother. Both Robert and Missy love the child, and his business is booming. His children bond well with the baby. On the surface, life couldn't be better.
Even when they're together, Missy's running the household, looking after children, doing all the work that it requires to run a house. He's never around, but yet he's still possessive. He's tracking her. He wants to know where she is. He wants to know everything she's doing. Again, these are early warning signs of someone that's possessive.
I don't know if he had some kind of tracker on her phone or her car or what, but you know, a lot of times after they broke up and we'd go out, she would go hide her vehicle in a parking lot somewhere, and then we would just take off and go in somebody else's vehicle, because I think she was suspicious that he was tracking her somehow.
I watched her little one, and I would babysit, and she would come home, and I'd ask her if she wanted lunch, and she was like, oh yeah, we'll have lunch. And then she would fall asleep with her in the chair. She was so tired, and he would be blowing up her phone. One call after another, and I took her phone and I would put it out in the kitchen, and then eventually I would just turn it off, and then my phone would ring. And he'd say, hi, it's Rob, I'm just checking on my girls. And I'm like, they're fine. They're taking a nap. Okay. Will you have her call me? Yeah, I will. He was like that all the time. He had to know exactly where she was at all times. And Melissa was getting pretty irritated about it.
I can't tell you how many nights in a row we're talking about how much she can't stand him, how she doesn't trust him.
Some felt he uses his kids against Missy.
Perfect example, her proposal. When he proposed to her, she called me that night bawling because he used his kids. They were there for the proposal, and she felt like she was backed into a corner. I think he used it to try to save them, and that wasn't the way.
In 2015, Missy and Robert are engaged but on edge, and during Christmas dinner, Robert keeps disappearing to his truck.
One of Missy's sister's boyfriends finds him doing cocaine on the dash of his car.
Instances like this continue to occur until 2016, when Missy finally breaks it off for good. However, her freedom is short-lived.
Now her ex performs CPR on her. Her bright future is into question. She had gone to school. She wanted to take up an education to help her family out. She's always friendly with people, compassionate. These are the people that are very easily to be pressured and stalked. They are not going to fight back, and this is what happened here.
She loved helping people. She wanted to make everyone happy, healthy, and if she could find a way to be helpful to somebody, that's what she wanted.
When the police arrive after the 911 call and they see him performing CPR on her on the bed, they remove her, the police remove her to the floor, but the minute they touch her skin, they feel very cold and stiff. It's obviously rigor mortis has begun to set in, which takes hours.
Robert, who has a black eye, tells officers that Missy is his girlfriend.
I was at a meeting and I received a phone call from the security manager at the time telling me that the police and MMR were at my home and I needed to go home. On the way home, I called my mom and my sister, and then I ended up calling and talking to him. And he was hysterical, and I ended up hanging up on him. And then when I turned the corner to come down the road, the police were putting up the caution tape around my house. He's there, and so is his mom and dad. I believe I collapsed on my neighbor's front lawn. I knew she was gone when I saw the caution tape going up.
And at that point, I remember like falling to the ground. Then I finally came to and I said, he did it. He did it to her. And I think a cop asked me who, and I said, Rob. And I remember them putting him in handcuffs and putting him in the police car right after that.
He had a black eye. He looked terrible.
So the police bring Propp to the police station for an interview. On July the 6th, they're going to give him an in-depth questioning to see if they can find out what really happened. During the interview, he says, this probably doesn't look good for me. I've got a black eye, a shiner, says they were out doing chores, they're a happy couple. The shiner has nothing to do with this incident. The police want to know, how did you get the black eye? He tells the police he's invited to the bar with Missy and her sister. They go out, they have drinks, they go and they have some salad. Missy's sister wishes to go to bed, so Robert asks Missy to go out voluntarily, and they decide to go to another bar.
He said that outside the bar he was assaulted by somebody and he received a black eye. And that's how he told the police he got the black eye.
He takes the punch, but doesn't engage back. Over the night, he has about 6 or 7 drinks, and Missy, perhaps fewer, though he's unsure. Propp says that after they leave the bar, he goes home with Missy, and they have sex. He leaves about 3 a.m., shaky from the alcohol.
He claims to have called Missy around 8 a.m. and says she didn't answer. He found that so strange that he went to her house, and when he arrived, he found out that the door had been forced partially open. So he used a crowbar to get all the way in and found Missy in crisis. He says he called 911 and then tried to resuscitate her.
A detective gets Propp to provide the password for his phone. A DNA swab and fingerprints are also taken.
Propp wishes to go home halfway through the interview, but the police were able to get him a change of clothing, and they seize his clothing for examination, and they tell him there will be further questions, and they allow him to leave. He's not under arrest at this point in time.
Police need to substantiate Propp's claims about his black eye.
They went and pulled the tapes at the establishment and they interviewed the bartenders that were on staff that night.
We knew the bartenders, so we already sort of knew that that was not the case, that nothing like that happened, so immediate, red flag.
Missy Thornton is being stalked by her ex-fiancé, and friends and family fear Robert Propp may become dangerous. Propp alerts 911 that Missy has been found hurt. He desperately tries to resuscitate her, but it is far too late. He's soon caught in a suspicious lie when he tells police that his black eye comes from a bar fight.
The facts as presented by Propp do not add up. The police have huge suspicions that he's involved, and the family have a great deal of detail about what happened the night before that are able to put this all into the proper context.
Melissa and her sister go to a bar around 9:15 p.m. on July 5th, 2016.
So we went to 3 different bars that night. We went to the first bar. We were sitting outside on the patio, and she told me that he drove through the parking lot. And I looked and seen him going through. There was an alley between the bar and another business, and he was driving through. So we ended up leaving and we went to another bar down the road. And we were there maybe an hour or so. And we went out into the back room and we talked, and then we decided to go home. And she wasn't ready to go home yet. It was my last day of vacation, and I told her, all right, I gotta work in the morning. We need to be back home before midnight. So we went out to the last bar.
That's when Robert appears uninvited and follows them home.
Angela goes to bed, leaving Missy to deal with Robert as she has for the past several months. There's no indication that anything is different.
I was texting a friend complaining that he was there and that he showed up. And then I fell asleep.
Missy's sister Angela hears a thump on the floor of a neighboring bedroom. She goes down to investigate. She confronts an angry Propp, who tells her it was him that fell out of bed. Missy was not seen at this point in time. Angela returns to bed.
I heard some noises. My cat was howling in the basement. When I got up and I was coming through the house and I was yelling and screaming, he was stumbling out of the bedroom, and he told me that he was drunk and he rolled out of bed. And that's when I started cussing at him.
She goes back to sleep, but is awakened again.
And then I was woken up again by my cat screaming. It was like a scream howl.
It's a terrible night for Angela, and soon after she leaves for work, believing that Missy is asleep and Robert is long gone.
Autopsy reveals that the cause of death is 4 minutes of neck compression, which restricts airflow. Propp's DNA is found under her fingernails. There's petechial hemorrhaging in both of Melissa's eyes and bruising to her upper and lower neck, which indicate forceful asphyxiation. There's bleeding under the skin in the midline area under her chin, and also a large area of bleeding behind her larynx. There's bruising to her left upper thigh, scratches to both her knees, her left lower leg, her right foot, the back of her right hand, and the back of her left wrist. All these injuries appear to be fresh.
The manner of death is deemed homicide. Police access Robert Propp's cell phone records. They find there were over 60 messages to Missy Thornton in one day. That is an abnormal number of calls. Based on the information and the evidence from the family and these calls, him showing up wherever, it is apparent to me that he is stalking her and not willing to give her any room to breathe. Typical stalking case usually ends in tragedy. Police interview Propp again. This time he changes his story. He's throwing in new details which tend to help the police in this investigation.
This time, police conduct a polygraph test on Robert Propp. Robert Propp tells officers that he and Missy have sex, but then they start to argue about a woman that Missy thinks he's seen. She leans over and accidentally elbows him in the face. This, he finally admits, is how he gets his black eye. He says that he sees stars when she hits him.
He claims that there was a physical confrontation and things got out of control.
He claimed that he rolled out of the bed and it moved the carpet in the bedroom, and that knocked the legs out from underneath the dresser and it fell down on top of him.
To get up from under that dresser, Propp admits that he places his left hand on Thornton's throat and, using his body weight, presses down.
Claiming he believes she was just knocked out cold, he puts her back to bed, covers her up, and then goes and drives around for a while. But when she doesn't answer his call in the morning, he returns to check on her. He keeps struggling to remember what happened because he was drunk, and when he gets angry, he has a hard time remembering things.
Officers decide there is probable cause for an arrest. He has read his Miranda warning waiver, and on July 7th, 2016, Robert Propp is arrested for the murder of his ex-fiancée. Propp says he didn't mean to kill Thornton.
He also tells police, "I should have kept my mouth shut."
He's given fast food and transported to Saginaw County Jail.
Robert Propp appears before Judge Stecco on an open count of murder. An open count of murder is laid when you have sufficient evidence to prove there was a murder or homicide, but it hasn't been decided, or you're letting the court decide if it's going to be first degree or second degree.
An open count of murder includes first-degree murder and second-degree murder. The former carries a mandatory penalty of life in prison without the possibility of parole, while the latter carries a possible maximum penalty of life with parole. Missy's sister reports yet more damage to her residence. 2 window screens have been destroyed.
Everything was left as is when we walked into the home. He had destroyed her bedroom. I mean, destroyed it. The dresser was kicked over, there was glass that was broken. Things were just shuffled around everywhere, and I mean everywhere. They had pulled out drawers in Angie's bedroom, kicked the back door in.
Stephanie tells of the screaming she heard in the neighborhood and how the police had conducted neighborhood inquiries, knocked on her door to try to determine what caused the screaming.
It's a terrible thought that those screams were coming from her own sister.
Detectives discover the recording of a call from jail.
Robert's brother advises him to do what he's told, follow the process, and ask God for forgiveness. Maybe then he can become a better person. Then the brother adds, "I didn't think that you were capable of this." Robert says they already know, but then admits he doesn't remember exactly what happened.
Propp's brother, in conversation with him while he's in custody, is telling Propp that he believes he has a self-defense case and that he was the one who was assaulted and possibly has a reason to beat the charge.
Missy Thornton is murdered, and her ex-fiancé, Robert Propp, keeps changing his story about what happened that night. Missy's friends are interviewed by detectives, and the picture of a violent stalker emerges, as well as Missy's long history of abuse. Missy's sisters witness frequent arguments between the two. They witness Propp take Melissa's keys and phone, sometimes throwing them into the road.
Robert was very controlling throughout their relationships. He didn't like her friendships. He took her items and threw them off the balcony. He even sprayed her with pop and abused her verbally and mentally.
Anytime I would come over to grab Melissa for a walk, he was really weird. He wouldn't look at me. He was mad that she was leaving. He just didn't like her doing anything.
In March, a few months before this happened to her, one of my girls called me and said that he took Missy's phone.
I went there on my lunch break and I pounded on the door and I was like, "You need to give me my sister's phone." And he got really nasty with me. He was cussing at me. We had words exchanged and he wouldn't give me the phone at all. And my mom ended up trying to go to retrieve her phone.
I hopped in the car and I said, I'm gonna get her phone. Because later on in the day, we were supposed to have an ice storm. And she had class. I was not having her travel around without a cell phone.
She was a fearless person, I will say, and around all the time that things were unfolding, she became fearful. I've never seen Missy scared in my life, but Melissa, as an adult with a vehicle, a home, a job, came to my house in the middle of the night. We're searching under her car for a tracking device because everywhere she goes, Rob is showing up. And that was the first time that she told me that he had been stalking her.
A bartender at a local lounge states that Missy would come in occasionally. In March of 2016, 4 months prior to her murder, she enters by herself on a Friday. Propp enters later, also by himself, and pulls her off of her seat and berates her.
So they interview the bartender and they see Missy get in her car, try to escape from Propp. And she takes off in her car. He gets in his truck and speeds off recklessly behind her. This is totally against what he has told the police. In his pursuit of her, he almost collides with her vehicle.
In her haste to get away, she leaves her purse and other belongings behind.
Once his abuse turns physical, Missy realizes she just can't put up with this anymore, and she has to leave to give their child a safe, loving family. But of course, Robert won't allow that.
Robert Propp stands trial for the murder of Melissa Thornton. The court hears testimony about Propp's behavior and cocaine use. The state files a motion to admit evidence that Propp engaged in other acts of domestic violence involving Melissa and his ex-wife.
This is relevant because he claims Melissa's death was an accident, but there is a history of him stalking, abusing, and strangling women. The defense tries to say that this is irrelevant, but the court lets it stand.
Propp's ex-wife relates a story where he tried to break in her home. She was lucky. She called the police. They were able to arrive, and they discovered a knife on his possession at that time. The results for her could have been the same as Missy.
It was stressful. It was very stressful. A part that really sticks out to me was his defense attorney came out in front of the jury and said that the stalking worked. What he wanted got him to spend time with Melissa and his daughter. And he kept reiterating, the stalking worked, the stalking worked. And it was just such a sick feeling in your stomach to hear that.
He takes a stand in his own defense in order to provide an explanation for Missy's death. And he claims that while they were having this sexual encounter, he falls out of bed with his hands around her throat, subsequently knocking down a chest of drawers on top of him, and he has to lift himself up with the chest of drawers while keeping his hands on her throat. He's trying to give himself an out as to how he did not kill her on purpose. He didn't want to say this because it would expose their sex life to people and cause shame and embarrassment for her and her family. It's a different story than he told the previous time, so it's only going to go against him.
He came up with this elaborate story, again, the last of one of many elaborate stories that he killed her from kinky sex. No. We were best friends. We talked about everything, including our sex lives. And the moment he said that, I felt sick to my stomach because it was like, I know her, and I can say that with confidence. I know that that wasn't the way.
She was already very cold at that point when he was doing CPR, so I think that was just a part of the scene he was trying to make. So as far as we know, she had been gone for hours at that point.
Prosecution wants to know if this was accidental, then why didn't he tell the truth? He claims his previous and current attorneys advise him to tell the real story at the proper time.
Because of the open murder charge on Robert Propp, it leaves the jury the choice to go first or second degree murder. It's actually a benefit to the police to have this sometimes because the evidence speaks for itself and juries are hard to trick.
We worried. You know, like you always worry about if they're gonna get off on a technicality or something. But I just wanted everybody to know what a narcissist he is.
I wasn't nervous that he'd get off, but I was nervous maybe he would get second-degree murder because it is really hard to prove premeditation.
On February 13th, 2018, after a 4-day trial and 2 hours of deliberation, the jury's verdict of first-degree murder is announced. This carries the mandatory sentencing of life in prison without parole.
I knew without a doubt that he was guilty. His story changed multiple times. Missy was a fighter, and what happened to him? He was covered in scratches. He had a black eye. He lied, said, "Oh, I got into a bar fight." No, she was fighting for her life.
Robert Propp, at the age of 37, is incarcerated at a Michigan state prison for the rest of his natural life. The family of Missy Thornton is grateful.
It did feel like a huge relief, lifted off our shoulders because there were so many court proceedings and it was very tense, like with his family in the courtroom and stuff. So it felt like maybe it was finally over. Little did we know it's far from over even now.
This is Missy's thumbprint. They told us at the funeral home they could take her thumbprint for a necklace. My dear son-in-law, Scott, got us all a necklace, our first Christmas without Missy. I feel like she's with me a lot, but I like to wear this too. I feel like she's always with me.
To the fact that he'll never walk the streets with me again, or anyone that loved Melissa, yes. But he still gets to call his mom. He gets to call his dad. He gets to go on with his life, living and breathing. She doesn't have that option. Her family doesn't have the option to call her. We want to see her, we go to the cemetery.